In geopolitics, you see some alliances that just make sense, and then some are a little more complicated. But the relationship between America and Saudi Arabia, man, that's in a whole different league. So today, we're going to dig into how a desert kingdom ended up holding so much sway over the world's biggest superpower.
All right, let's just jump right into the big mystery here. Think about it. Saudi Arabia has no nukes, right? Their military is a tiny fraction of the US's. And yet, Washington just seems to bend over backwards for them. So what gives? Why the special treatment?
And this is where it gets really weird. I mean, look at this. Russia invades Ukraine and bam, the US hits them with massive sanctions, freezes their assets, you name it. But then, Saudi Arabia attacks Yemen, a conflict the UN calls the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet, and America's response? It's to sell them more weapons and help them out with intelligence. It's a total double standard. And hey, this isn't some new thing either. Just think back to 9/11. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi citizens. But did the US turn on Saudi Arabia? Nope. We went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq. The core relationship with the kingdom, totally protected, untouched.
Now, the first thing everyone says is, it's the oil, stupid. And yeah, oil's a huge part of it, but it's not the whole story, not even close. Because if it were just about oil, believe me, America's foreign policy would look a whole lot different.
Just take a look at these other big oil producers. Iran, Venezuela, Libya, Iraq. The US has actively gone after all of them with sanctions or even military force. So if the goal was simply get the oil, why would you protect one and attack all the others? See? Something else has to be going on here.
Okay, so if it's not oil, and it's obviously not their army, then what is it? What's the real source of Saudi Arabia's incredible power over the US? Well, to find the answer, we can't look at today's news. We've got to go back in time, to a moment when America was in some serious trouble.
Yeah, our story really kicks off back in 1971. This was a year when the US dollar, and frankly the entire American economy, was teetering right on the edge of a cliff.
So here's the deal. After World War II, the whole world economy was built on one simple promise from the United States. For every dollar you have, we have the gold to back it up. Simple, right? But America got a little addicted to printing money. A lot addicted, actually. By 1970, they'd printed so much cash that they had like 5 times more dollars out there than they had gold in their vaults. It was basically a giant financial balancing act. Countries like France started getting suspicious, and then, boom, August 1971. Britain calls America's bluff, and the whole house of cards starts to fall.
And this was the moment of absolute panic in Washington. President Nixon gets on TV and basically tells the entire world, about that promise, we can't keep it anymore. Just like that, in a single speech, he defaulted. The gold standard, the bedrock of the global economy, was gone. Poof!
So suddenly, the US dollar wasn't backed by gold or silver or anything tangible at all. It was just a piece of paper. Its only value came from the world's trust in the US government. And let me tell you, the American economy was staring into a very, very deep abyss.
The folks in Washington knew that trust us wasn't going to cut it. They needed to find a new anchor for the dollar, something real, something that every single country on Earth absolutely had to have. And they found it, deep in the deserts of Saudi Arabia.
What came next was a secret deal, a real deal of the century. The US went to the Saudi royal family and made them an offer they couldn't refuse. You get our unconditional military protection. In exchange, the Saudis had to agree to 2 conditions, and these 2 conditions would completely reshape the world economy for the next 50 years.
And this is the genius of it. It created this perfect, unbreakable loop. We call it petrodollar recycling. Here's how it works. Countries sell oil and get paid in US dollars. Then what do they do with all those dollars? They recycle them right back into the US by buying things like government bonds. And that money, it finances the US government, which in turn pays for the military that, you guessed it, protects Saudi Arabia. It's a closed circuit of power and money.
The effect of this was just massive. Overnight, oil effectively replaced gold. If you were Japan or Germany or any industrialized nation and you needed to buy oil to run your country, which everyone did, you first had to buy US dollars. This created a massive, permanent, global demand for American currency. Even countries that hated the US were now forced to buy and hold dollars, basically propping up the American economy just to keep their own lights on.
But the Saudis are no fools. They knew that a deal like this, based on political goodwill, could fall apart. So they made 3 absolutely genius moves to lock in their power and make sure America could never walk away.
First up, taking control of their own oil fields. Now, a lot of countries did this, but they usually did it by sending in the army and kicking out all the foreign companies. That created a lot of enemies. The Saudis, they did it with accountants, not soldiers. They treated it like a business negotiation, not a conquest.
And check out how they did it. It was so smart. Over a few years, they just bought out the American owners of their giant oil company, Aramco. But here's the kicker. After they owned it 100%, they turned around and paid those same American companies billions of dollars in service fees to keep running the whole operation for them. It was the ultimate win-win. The Saudis owned their oil, and powerful American corporations were still getting rich, keeping them deeply invested in the kingdom's stability. Okay, that brings us to their second brilliant move. They used that corporate partnership to create this unbreakable political loop right in the heart of Washington, D.C. It goes like this. U.S. oil companies make a killing from Saudi oil. They take some of that profit and donate it to U.S. politicians. And then those politicians vote to send the U.S. military to protect Saudi Arabia, which of course keeps the oil flowing and the campaign donations coming. See? It's another perfect circle. And finally, for their third move, once they had the political protection locked down, they took all that oil money and started weaving themselves directly into the fabric of the American economy. They're now one of the biggest holders of U.S. government debt. They own the largest oil refinery in North America, and their massive investment fund owns huge chunks of iconic American companies like Uber and Lucid. They're not just a partner anymore, they're part of the system.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? I mean, this whole incredible story isn't just about politics or oil. It's really a masterclass in what power actually is.
At the end of the day, Saudi Arabia's real power doesn't come from an army or from threats. It comes from making a brilliant deal, a win-win situation where their most important partner, the United States, is actually incentivized to make sure they succeed. That kind of leverage, that's more powerful than any weapon.
And that leaves us with a huge question for the future, right? This entire 50-year power structure was built on a world addicted to oil. But what happens when the world starts to run on green energy? What happens to all that leverage? Can this alliance possibly survive? That's the real cliffhanger, and it's what's going to define the next chapter of this incredible story. Thanks for sticking with me on this one.